Hello, I am so excited to be here. I'm excited to see the morning group and share with you something that I'm passionate about. I am Melissa. I am a mom to 3 extremely strong-willed children. Avelina is 10, Amryn is 5, and Alden just turned 2. I've been married for 13 years, but we've been together for almost 18 years, which is just I don't even feel old enough to say that. It's like mind-blowing. I have a passion for love and logic. I have been using it for a long time in my own life. But in case you've never heard of it, it is a parenting strategy or program that was created by Jim Fay, Foster Cline, and then Charles Fay, who is Jim Fay's son, way, way back in 1977. So it's been around for a while. What is love and logic? Love and logic is loving your child enough to be willing to set and enforce limits with sincere compassion and empathy. The logic happens when we allow children to make decisions, affordable mistakes, and experience the natural or sometimes logical consequence that follows. Our children learn that the quality of their life depends on the quality of their choices. All right, there's a little parenting hack for you. Everything's hard. These kids do not listen. This is your life now. Godspeed. I'm just kidding. Sometimes it sure feels like parenting is a losing battle. There are power struggles, yelling, frustration, and probably my biggest hurdle is the mental exhaustion of being a mom to 3 littles. Many, many years ago, I nannied for these 2 adorable, super strong-willed boys. I think God was preparing me for my own children when he set me up with these 2. They are awesome, sweet guys. But I was not inexperienced in childcare. I had been a nanny for several years and a teacher, and yet I found myself every single day coming home completely exhausted with the power struggles that we were having with one another. And I found Love and Logic through the church I was attending, and I attended it. I was not a mom at a time, just a nanny, just wanting to make my life a little bit easier. And I started implementing the strategies that I learned from that class and noticed changes immediately. And I was like, yes, I love this. I want to learn more about it. There is no true parenting hack, right? Every child is their own child, and everybody experiences life very differently. But there are some proven guidelines that can make your life a little easier. And the best part of Love and Logic is that the philosophy of Love and Logic is modeled after the most perfect parent. And so we are going to see an example of how God uses Love and Logic in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. This is Pastor John Gray, and he speaks just so eloquently that I thought you would enjoy listening to him explain it.
Yes. The man has become like one of us to know good and evil. So let's get him out of the garden, lest he eat from the tree of life and live forever. Well, God, why would you kick us out? Because I love you. Wait, no. But if I eat from the tree of life, I'll live forever. No, but you ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil first, and that broke you. And if you eat from the tree of life, you'll live forever broken. So before you make a bad thing permanent, let me get you out of here, because I knew this was gonna happen. So I had a lamb.
I had to cut it off there, but the rest of the speech is really good if you ever want to look him up and watch the rest of it. I just want to make sure I don't click that again. There we go. God gives us an example of how he uses Love and Logic immediately, right away in Genesis. When he comes into the garden and Adam and Eve have done what they've done, and he had told them, if you eat from the tree of knowledge, there will be a consequence. And so he comes into the garden and he asks Adam, "Where are you?" And Adam and Eve come out, and they had been hiding, and they said, "We were afraid because we were naked." And God says, "Who told you you were naked?" Now, see what God did there? He didn't come in and start shaming them. "I told you not to eat from that tree. Now look what you did. You ruined the world forever." He didn't say that. He came in and he asked them a question, because what he did was he allowed Adam and Eve the freedom to make the choice. And in a similar way, if we give children freedom and loving acceptance, they will sometimes make choices that we don't agree with. And when we don't approve of them, we give them the opportunity to learn through their mistakes or their consequences. What God does here is he teaches us that his no means no. I said no eating from the tree, and so this is what's going to happen. This is what I said would happen. This is what's going to happen. But more importantly, he teaches us that his yes means yes. And when your child can rely on the fact that you will stay consistent with your no, they can also then rely on the fact that you'll stay consistent with your yes, and offer them that peace and that comfort that when you say yes, I'll be there for you, they know that you'll be there for them. Like I said, God could have shamed Adam and Eve. He could have come in yelling with anger and frustration. But not only does he not shame them, allow them to take the responsibility of their actions, he then also, after he banishes them from the garden, he clothes them, because he doesn't want them to continue to feel that shame. They've already learned their lesson. They've already suffered their consequence. They've been banished because he loves them, and he doesn't want them to suffer broken for the rest of their life. Using love and empathy to parent is the ultimate goal. When children feel loved and supported in their environment, it preserves the relationship that you have. The best part is then you get to spend more time relaxing and less time managing behaviors, right? Children learn that they are capable of problem solving, and that's something that is going to help them when they become adults. They're going to become responsible, caring adults. Overall, there's less stress in the home, and ultimately, we know that children thrive in a consistent, reliable, caring environment with high achievable expectations. And when they have that caring, reliable environment, they're able to meet those high expectations that we create for them because they feel safe. Our home is our safe space. And that means it should be a safe space for everyone, including you. Love and logic is an approach that you can apply to any aspect of your life, not just in parenting. Setting boundaries and expectations takes the pressure off of you and puts the responsibility on the person causing the conflict. Bob Sorensen from the Love and Logic Institute writes this beautiful quote about empathy and the importance of empathy and how it is truly the heart of love and logic. The practice of understanding how another person is feeling keeps us from becoming that angry parent. Empathy is part of a strong, positive emotional state in which we can treat others with respect while still setting appropriate limits on how others behave around us. It gives us that glimpse into the heart of another person and helps us remember to always put the love into love and logic. This sentence here is key. Empathy does not offer excuses for bad choices. As a parent, sometimes empathy must be followed by a consequence or by allowing some sadness to come into our child's lives. But with empathy, we can give consequences with love rather than anger. Empathy is the foundation of all emotional intelligence. By helping our children learn empathy, we raise the odds that they will have strong, positive social relationships, truly care for others, and be able to set appropriate limits in their own lives without using angry behaviors or words. Before I studied Love and Logic, I didn't know this, and so I'd like to share it with you. Empathy is something that children learn over time. They're not born with it. We're not born with empathy, and it actually has to be taught and modeled consistently. That's why it's so important to create situations early when failures are small and children can learn from their trials in a safe way. So there's 2 basic rules to Love and Logic. And I'm sure everybody has felt like it's Groundhog Day as a parent, constantly repeating things over and over, right? Rule number 1 is that the adult sets firm limits in loving ways without anger, lecture, threats, and what every mom wants to hear without repeated warnings, right? How many times do you say things over and over and over? No more, you don't have to do that anymore. Number 2, when children misbehave or cause problems, adults hand those problems back in a loving way. We provide empathy first. Before we describe the consequence, we use few words, more loving actions, delay the consequence when necessary, and give the child the gift of being able to solve that problem themselves. Now, before I talk about the 2 parenting types that Love and Logic talks about, I don't want anyone to feel bad if this is your parenting style, or feel like, hey, that's how I was brought up, that stinks, that's frustrating, because it's all a learning process, right? So there are 2 kinds of parenting styles that Love and Logic would kind of say that isn't very helpful for our child. And the first one is the helicopter parent. And I would say that in the last couple of years, the helicopter parent has really increased to kind of like come in, guns a-blazing, save the child before they ever even have a chance to attempt anything. I mean, everyone I'm sure has seen that and experienced that. And the problem with that is, yes, you're keeping your child safe and you're protecting them, but they're also not learning that empathy or the problem solving to be able to grow into their own person. And then there's the drill sergeant. And the drill sergeant gets the job done, but they do it with screaming and yelling and oftentimes threatening. And unfortunately, that comes at the cost of the self-esteem of the child. And so it kind of doesn't do much for the relationship that you're building together. Now, there is a new kind of parenting style that's coming about, and Love and Logic doesn't want to call it a parenting style. They actually refer to it in kind of a harsh manner, and they call it a cop-out, but it's called the laissez-faire parent, and it's kind of the parent that doesn't commit to one way or another and has decided that their child can raise themselves. They can make their own decisions. They can be their own person, and as God-fearing women, we know that God gave children parents for a reason. We're there to guide them, to love them, and to teach them. And so that's why the laissez-faire parenting style could be very dangerous for children. So what does Love and Logic say? Love and Logic says to be a consultant parent. And it's the most ideal because as children grow, they're constantly changing. They start as concrete thinkers and turn into abstract thinkers. And so our job then needs to change as they continue to grow. We need to move from setting guidelines and enforceable limits to more of a coaching role as they begin to age and they make their own decisions. So overall, there's shared control, shared thinking, equal shares of consequence with empathy, and then maintaining the child's self-concept. And that's the overall guidance of Love and Logic. So it starts early. I was doing Love and Logic with my daughter as soon as she was born. And so what that looks like is shared control with giving lots and lots of choices. For a baby, it might be something like, would you like to use a fork or a spoon to eat? Do you want mommy to change your diaper? Do you want daddy to change your diaper? And even before they can respond, you're still engaging them in that conversation. Do you want to nurse from the left side or the right side? Do you want to hold your bottle or should I? It's just those simple conversations. As they move up into toddler stage, it might look like, would you like me to help you get dressed? Or would you like to get dressed yourself and let me know if you need help? As they move to a little kid, we actually just did this with my son yesterday because he was refusing to put on his shoes. So I said, would you like to go to the car with your feet on the ground or in the air? And guess what? He chose in the air, and that was fine with me because he got there. And then for our teenagers or our older kids, would you like to empty the dishwasher before dinner or after? And as we continue to move into that consultant parenting and that coaching role, it turns into more of a shared thing. And so the teenager might say, you know what, Mom, I would prefer to empty the dishwasher after I go to soccer practice. That's fine. We worked it out together. It's agreeable. Everybody's happy in that situation. Eventually, what we want to do is we want to guide children to own and solve their own problems, because really that's what takes the stress off of you as a parent. As parents, we carry so much weight on our shoulders. We carry the mental load of being a mom, a woman, whatever your roles are, aunt, grandma. And then we also carry everything that our children carry. So wouldn't it be nice to hand some of that back to them? And how we do that is, of course, empathy, right? It's the first thing. Acknowledging what they're going through. And then the key is sending that power message. What do you think you're going to do? Or what would you like to do about that? Sometimes, depending on where you are in your process of using love and logic, you might need to assist in offering them choices and say, would you like to know what some kids have tried? If they are having a struggle to come up with their own ideas. And then asking the child, how will that work for you? How's that consequence going to work for you? And here's something that's really important that I feel like everyone needs to hear. Allowing the child to decide if they are going to solve the problem or not. So oftentimes, I have been so guilty of this. When one of the children hits another child, and I say, go say sorry. And honestly, I can't force them to be sorry, right? So I have to give permission to them to solve that problem or not, and let the logical consequence follow. Maybe the next day they punch their friend, and the next day their friend doesn't want to play with them, and you can say, how did that work out for you? Did that work out when you guys went the next day? Have that conversation. Maybe they're like, yeah, Mom, I don't know. They didn't want to play with me. I'm really sorry to hear that. What are you going to do about that? I want to give a real life example of my 10-year-old who is so sick of love and logic, I think sometimes. She's been on it since she was born, right? So my 10-year-old is going through a really, really difficult time in her life. And she had a massive meltdown. I'm talking like drawing on the walls, throwing stuff all over her room, saying some pretty unkind things to me. And I walked in her room and I said, you know what? This is just draining the energy right out of me. I love you, but I got to go lay down. I am exhausted from this. And so I did. I went to my room, and she was not having that. She wanted to fight. She was ready to fight. So she came into my room, and she was like yelling at me. I don't even remember what she said. And I said, I love you too much to argue right now. I need a minute for me. I'll be happy to talk to you when your voice sounds like mine. She ran out, slammed her door as hard as she could. In my head, I was like, all right, it's fine. Keep calm. And then she came back a couple minutes later, ready to fight. And I said, honey, I love you, but I will talk to you when your voice sounds like mine. And then she left her room. She went in. About, I'd say a good hour and a half later, she came in, and I could tell she was different, and she was ready to talk. And I said, are you ready to talk? And she said, yes. And I said, okay. So I let her talk. I waited for a minute, and she shared with me that she was hungry and frustrated. So I hit her with the empathy first, and I said, I understand that it must be difficult dealing with that frustration and not understanding why you're so frustrated. Then I hit her with that power message, so what are you gonna do about it? And she was like, I was actually surprised. I thought she was gonna have an answer, but she was like, I don't know. And so then I offered her a choice. I said, would you like me to let you know next time that you might be hungry? And I'm thinking in my head, this is probably not gonna go that well because she's probably gonna, tell me I'm not hungry, but she said yes, and so I said, okay. Now we can't stop there, right? Because she destroyed her room, and she yelled some really unkind things to me, and that's not okay. And so here's where that delayed consequence comes in, because this was like an hour and a half later by this point. And so I said, what are we gonna do about everything that happened before? And she said, I'm gonna fill your energy right back up. And I said, okay, how do you think you're gonna do that? So she runs downstairs, and we have these energy sticks, like when they drain my energy and I just can't do anything from like they're fighting or whatever, they have to pick a stick, and it's all jobs I hate, like washing the toilet, cleaning out the toothbrush drawer, emptying the dishwasher. I hate doing that. And so they have to pick a stick and do that. Well, she didn't pick a stick, but she just went down and emptied the dishwasher, and she came running back upstairs, and she goes, I emptied and loaded the dishwasher. She's got this big smile on her face. She's like, so is your energy filled back up? I said, ooh, the thing is, that really exhausted me. I mean, it took so much out of me. I'm probably gonna need a little bit more time. And so she goes, well, what else do you need? And I said, I'm hoping you're gonna figure that out, because I'm too tired to think about it. And so she leaves, and she ends up cleaning up the basement, and then she hits me real good by doing something nice for her brother, because she knows that's gonna fill my energy up right away, and it did. She got me there. But then later that night, what I did was I waited until my husband came home. And I waited until both of them were in the same room. And I said to my husband, man, today was tough. I had the energy just drained right out of me. And you know what, though? It got filled back up. And it got filled up so much so, like I wasn't even expecting it, that I was able to get a job done that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And I'm saying all of this in front of her, not to her, but in front of her, so that she's hearing that what she did was successful, and it made me feel good. And I want her to see that she has made a change in her behavior without directly saying to her, good job, and giving her my praise. I want her to feel it intrinsically. So let's talk about that, consequence versus punishment. There's a very clear difference in love and logic between consequence and punishment. And Proverbs 22:6, God tells us, train up your child in the way they should go. He does not say, shame your child in the way you should go, yell at your child in the way you should go, demand your child to do this. He says, train them up, coach them, lead them, guide them, give them that discipline with a consequence that makes sense. Discipline should never be a punishment. Our job as their parent is, of course, to guide them. In fact, I teach my children that a consequence can actually be a positive thing as well. So every weekend I go to Costco. I love it. I'm obsessed. And oftentimes I want somebody to come with me, but usually I'm not the one they pick. They usually pick their dad. But they know that when I go to Costco, whoever comes with me tends to get a treat. It's not that I've ever said, hey, come to Costco with me, I'll buy you something. It's just that when I go, I always seem to want to get a soda or a pizza or eat the Costco brunch. And so they have learned that a positive consequence of going with mom to Costco is that you get a treat. Not always, but they know that because they've associated those positive consequences. And I don't think that people hear that enough, that consequence we usually associate with that negative tone, but it can be a positive thing as well. You know, you cleaned your room, positive consequence, you have more time to play. Using it in a different light for your children to see that discipline doesn't always mean negative. And the Bible talks about discipline in so many places, but just to highlight a couple, Proverbs 23:13 says, "Do not withhold discipline from a child." Proverbs 13:24 says, "Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent in discipline." Ephesians 6:4 says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in discipline and instruction of the Lord." So the difference between a consequence is that when a consequence is expressed with empathy, it's going to place a child in a thinking, decision-making mode. And the problem becomes the bad guy, not you, which is so different than punishment. Punishments are often elicited with anger and emotional responses, and oftentimes a child has the desire then to become sneaky and not do what you want them to do, and then you become the bad guy instead of the problem. We want our children to see that the problem is the bad guy. I'm sorry you made that choice. I'm sorry that you're upset that the choice you made didn't work out the way you thought it would. Literally, that just happened on my way here today as my son is screaming at me because he is not going to be at school in time to get free breakfast. And so I said, "Oh, remember you made the choice to not put your shoes on?" And he said, "It's not my fault. It's not my fault. You're so mean." And I said, "Amron, was it you that was playing the video game?" "I was." "Was it you that didn't put your shoes on?" "Well, yes." I said, "Well then, you're sad that you made the choice to do that instead of coming to school on time." And I had him there. There's nothing he could do. So he is my most loving and most challenging child, the one that wanted to fly to the car. So there's effective strategies. There's 7 effective strategies in Love and Logic. And before we talk about those, I need to hear this. And so I feel like I need to share it with you. And it's that you cannot take what your child says personally, even though sometimes they're going to hit you right in the gut. Because here's the thing. Children are egocentric. They are born that way. It is not their fault. Their brain operates that way. They were made that way. They are master manipulators. I have this beautiful story of I had just had Alden. I was so tired, and my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law were over, and Amron was, jealous, of course, because he had a new brother he had to share space with, and he had to go to bed, and I got to nurse the baby, and so that means, the baby gets extra time with mom. And so he comes to the door of his room, and he stands right at the door, and he's crying. So, I'm already, as a mom, I'm already oh, gosh, I don't think I can do this. And I had just had a baby, so I'm emotional. And he goes, "Mom." I said, "What's wrong?" He goes, "My heart is breaking." And I was like, "Oh, come on." He's got me. I'm standing firm. And he goes, "I'm just a little guy. I can't sleep by myself." And I lost it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta get a drink of water. Hold on." Okay, so I may have failed a little bit in my love and logic on this, that I did go back in and hug him and lay him back down. But I did stay firm and tell myself, he does love me. He is a big guy. He can do this. But they get you, and they know that. And you better believe that the second he got in that bed, he had a big smile on his face. His heart was not broken. So strategy number 1, On your table is a handout. It's called Turn Your Words into Gold, and this is probably the thing that people love the most about Love and Logic, is these enforceable statements. So basically, say what you're going to do, not what you want the child to do. Speak from your perspective because that's all you can control. I cannot force my child to do something, but I can word it in an enforceable way that encourages them to do that. I'll speak with you when your voice sounds like mine. I drive kids for ice cream that have their coat and shoes on. I have time to help you get dressed now if you want help, or would you like to do it yourself? This one was really effective with Amron. I called him, Amron, I have time to get you dressed, come now. He didn't come. I said, okay, this is my last time. He didn't come. All of a sudden, we're walking out the door. He wants to get dressed. I say, Amron, my time is up. I had that time to help you, and now my time's over. I don't have any more time. He's screaming at me, yelling at me. I said, oh, I'm so sorry you made that choice. You know, I feel bad, but you can do it. You're a big guy. And so he's screaming the whole time. He gets himself dressed because, of course, it is something he can do. And he couldn't get his socks on, and we get in the car, and he's still screaming and crying, and he's so frustrated. He's like, why won't you help me? Why won't you help me? And I said, you know, I wanted to help you. I was available to help you, but you were busy, and so now I'm busy. And so he ended up getting his socks on as we were driving, but the next day I said, hey, Amron, I'm available to help you get dressed right now. And guess who came running? Amron came running. Strategy number 2. This one is super good for those preteens and teenagers. It's called going brain dead and becoming a broken record. It's using one-liners to eliminate nagging and arguing. Teenagers love to argue. They love it because it's a sense of power and control for them. And so you can respond with things like, I respect you too much to argue. Really? I know you, and I'm sure you'll come up with something. That's terrible. How are you going to handle it? This one I thought was really funny. I don't know if I could say this with sincerity, though, to my child, but it's, oh, no, I'm glad that's not my paper. You must feel awful. What can you do? Like, or your report card or late assignment. Like, I don't think I would say that as sincere as I probably should. So you do need to say them with sincerity and avoid the sarcasm. That's the important part to the one-liners. That's really an interesting way of looking at it. Let me know how that turns out. Or, wow, what a mess. Let me know what you come up with. Or, thanks for sharing. So it's just kind of like those one-liners that don't really need a response or elicit a response. And if that doesn't work, strategy number 3, also really good for teenagers or preteens, is using the word bummer or I know. You can avoid arguing lectures and drawn-out conversations by using this one word. Again, it's a story about Amron. I didn't intend on this, that there would be this many stories about Amron, but last night, Amron wanted his tablet, and he didn't make some responsible choices, and I said, I'm sorry, Amron, in order to use electronics, you gotta be responsible. And so, you know, he's screaming at me, and so I just respond with, I know. And he's yelling, I want my tablet. I know. I wanna play with it right now. I know. Give it to me right now. I know. And eventually they wear out, or you move into strategy number 4, which is walk away. And this is sometimes paired with a statement. I'll check on you when you're calm, or I'll speak with you when we're both calm. And that's okay. It's okay to say to your child, you know what? I need to walk away. I need a break for me. It's okay to show them that, because what you're doing is you're teaching them that empathy and also giving them the words that they can say when they need a break. I'll see you when you're sweet's another one you can say. Strategy number 5, we talked a little bit about this with the delayed consequence of when I was speaking about Avelina, but I feel like every parent needs to hear somebody tell them it's okay to delay the consequence. When there's no consequence that occurs naturally, like your child says, I don't want to wear my coat, and they go outside and it's cold and they put it on. That's that natural consequence. Sometimes when there isn't a natural consequence available, there has to be an imposed consequence. And the thing is, the imposed consequence needs to be enforceable, right? I mean, I have been guilty of saying, if you do this, then you're never going to get it back. Like that's unrealistic. That's not enforceable. So it's got to be enforceable. It needs to fit the crime. So this one I talk to my husband about a lot because he often wants to go to take the tablet away, but that doesn't always fit the crime. So you want it to fit the crime. And then number 3, be laid down firmly in that love and empathy. So sometimes these imposed consequences do look like punishments, but the difference is that when they're imposed without anger and threats, they are presented to children in a way that makes the connection between their misbehavior and that consequence. So here's an example of child doesn't get off tablet when asked. Angry words would be, I told you would lose your tablet if you didn't get off. Now look, and then you take the tablet away. Versus empathy. I'm sorry you feel so sad. I feel sad when I lose something important to me too. And depending on the age, you could follow that up with a power statement. What do you think you're gonna do to get it back? Child downloads an unapproved app. Angry words. Why can't I trust you? Now I have to watch you like a hawk. And you will lose your tablet for the next month. It's unrealistic, right? Empathy, I'm sorry you lost your tablet. I know how important that was to you, but you're smart. You'll think of a way to get it back. See how there's no timeline on that, and it's no longer my responsibility to decide when this child gets their tablet back? They're gonna have to figure it out. And I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't have any ideas. They're gonna have to think of something, right? And then that gives you time as the parent to think of what might work to get it back. There's this really cute story that comes straight from the Love and Logic book that I want to read to you. 2 grade schoolers, Colette and Mia, are riding to the shopping center in the backseat of the family car. After they're bickering and punching and pushing each other, their mom draws that line in the backseat. This is your side, this is your side. Don't touch each other, don't cross the line. But seconds later, then comes the screams from one another. Mom, Colette's on my side. Mom, Mia punched me. Mom's had enough of it. Now watch what mom does. She doesn't do anything in the moment. The next time they're about to go shopping, mom says, the last time we went to the shopping center, there was a lot of fighting in the back seat. It invaded my ears, and it made it so that I couldn't concentrate on the road. So I've decided to take a quiet drive to the store today. Don't worry, though. I've hired a babysitter to stay with you. And don't be concerned about how you're going to pay for her, because you can pay me on Saturday from your allowance, or I can take it, or we can decide another way for you to pay for it. But that doesn't have to be decided right now. You can tell me later how you want to figure that out. So she actually delays the consequence all the way until the next time she goes to the store. Now, if you're thinking like my kid doesn't get an allowance, you could think of a different way too to solve that problem. But like the idea is that you don't have to have the answer right away, and that's okay. Sometimes you need time to think about the consequence. And I actually really like this one that says, I've never been the parent of a 5-year-old before, so I'll have to give this some thought and get back to you. I think I'm going to use that. Strategy number 6 is placing that responsibility on the child. And we've talked a lot about this. It's what Love and Logic is all about. And I will tell you, it just will take so much stress off of you when you remove yourself and your emotions and help your child gain that responsibility. And what you're doing for them for their life is so amazing when you do that, because you're setting them up for success. And then there's just 2 examples there. I'm sorry you made that choice, and what are you going to do about it, which we talked a lot about. And last strategy number 7, is ultimately continuously overloading a child with choices also can take them out of that fight or flight moment when they're in it. mostly applies to those younger children that get dysregulated and worked up and you can't kind of get through to them. You can kind of sidetrack them with choices, all the way up to their room. Do you want to take one step at a time or 2 steps? Do you want to crawl up the stairs or do you want to run up the stairs? Do you want to slam your door super hard or lightly? Do you want to kick the bed or kick the dresser? Whatever they're doing, just go with it, and you're giving them these choices that you are comfortable with, but also they're feeling that power and that control. And then the thing is that I didn't get too much of a chance to talk about this, but I don't want to leave the conversation without talking about the importance of recovery time, because it's a huge aspect of Love and Logic. But Love and Logic is a 6-week course, and I only have a few minutes with you. So I'm trying to give you the high-level overview. But recovery time is something that's really crucial, and it is not a timeout. So imagine if you're at work and you're having a fit. Everybody has fits, right? Not just kids. And your boss comes to you and says, ooh, I'm gonna need you to take a timeout. And I think we're doing a minute per age now, so you're gonna need to take 39 minutes. I'm gonna be mad because I don't need 39 minutes to calm down. It's probably only gonna take me about 2 minutes to calm down. Or B, maybe I need 2 hours to calm down, and that's not enough time, and it's not up to her to decide how long it takes my body to be recovered and ready to go. And so that's the difference with Love and Logic, is that we want to teach our children to manage their own recovery time. Sometimes a child doesn't need more than just a walk to their safe space, turn around and come back, and they're recovered. Sometimes a child really needs a couple hours. Sometimes Avelina will be in her recovery for 2 hours. And that's her own time, and that's her own way of letting herself know what she needs. So let me tell you what this looks like from early on all the way up. It can start right away with babies. Little Amron used to love to eat the dog food. I don't understand because it doesn't even taste good, but he would love to eat it and then put the dog food in the water bowl. So he would crawl over, and as a baby, we do this uh-oh song. You say, uh-oh, and you pick them up and you say, that's Chi-Chi's water. And then I would bring him back and I'd set him down with one of his toys and I'd say, this is Amron's toy. Amron was a slow learner, so we had to do this probably about 45 times, but eventually he did get it. And what that had taught him is what is his space and what is not his space. And then I didn't have to clean off all my shelves and move everything up high so he wasn't reaching and grabbing it and throwing it down. That's what it looks like with the baby. As they get a little bit older, you would bring your baby in, seated with their face out, so they don't feel, trapped or whatever, and just gently put your arms around them. And the goal is that you want to get to a point where you can say a whole sentence of, oh, I see that you're sweet. So how it works is as the toddler is screaming and crying, the second they take a breath, any pause at all, you say, oh, I see, and then they start crying, and then as soon as they breathe, oh, I see that and you keep going until you can get that whole sentence out so that they associate the pause in their breath, the calm, that means that their body has calmed down. You're teaching them what it means to be calm and to be relaxed. And as they get older, then you might have a special space for them, or they might have their own space. You'll see you when you're sweet. And set them down. And if they get up and they run away, I'll see you when you're sweet. I'll see you when you're sweet. And some kids, it takes multiple times to do that. But then as they continue to go up, I used to say, as Avelina was about 5 or 6, I'd say, would you like some recovery time? And honestly, a lot of times she would take it on her own. I didn't need to be there to tell her, go take some recovery time. Sometimes we did have to talk about that, but usually she'd want to do it on her own. So overall, Love and Logic is supposed to make your life easier. It's supposed to make your life feel a little less stressful and hopefully create some bonds with your children that last into adulthood. And, even if your child is an adult, you can still use love and logic on them. Even if they have children, you can still be there to offer them that empathy and that guidance and be that consultant parent in the end and be their support. So again, it's a huge program, and I tried to get as much as I could in a short amount of time. There's a ton of handouts. Specifically, I want to highlight the one that is for anybody that has children birth to 6. It goes into a little bit more detail of how the love and logic process works for those younger kids. But overall, thank you so much for letting me be here. I had a great time with you.